Hello and welcome to the video where I'm going to show you how to get started with the Shell Starter Kit on Windows. If you are on Mac, that is a separate video. You may want to watch that one instead. In either case, for both Windows and Mac, the instructions can be found at github.com/blairw/shellstarterkit. But once you're there, you'll have to select either Mac or Windows, so just click on Windows. You'll also see that there's this navigation. So with this navigation, you can go between the different kinds of instructions we've got here, and with this one we've even got bookmarks for the different chapters. Isn't that handy? So for Windows, the first thing you want to do is go down and see the WSL instructions. WSL is the Windows subsystem for Linux. The instructions can be found here. Just make sure that you follow the instructions for WSL 1, not version 2, and also that afterwards you install the Windows Terminal app. I will show you how to do that. So once you're here, click copy here and open up PowerShell. PowerShell is a good Windows specific terminal. We will use it just to install WSL, but nothing further. You did notice I opened it as administrator, so that's just here. Type in PowerShell. Oh, that's PowerPoint. And you can run anything as administrator that way. So that was pretty fast because I've actually already done this beforehand because I don't want to have to restart this computer in the middle of this video recording. But for your computer, you may need to, at this point, go here and restart, which I will not do because I want to press forward. All right, so the next thing is ignore all the WSL2 stuff, and we want to go straight to the part where it says to install your Linux distribution of choice. So what you want to do is open up the Microsoft Store and then type Ubuntu 18.04. It has to be 18.04, as you can see in our instructions here. The reason for that is that 20.04 only really works properly on WSL2, and WSL2 only works properly on newer Windows 10 computers, and all those shenanigans that we don't want to have to deal with at this stage. So just click here or tap here and click install. In my case, it said that I already had this app because I previously downloaded it. For you, it probably doesn't say that, but just let this installation run its course. Alright, so that's done. I'm going to launch that here, and it's going to have to do more work as part of the installation. But here I'm going to click and type terminal, actually Windows terminal, although that comes up anyway. So this, again, on my one, it says that you own this app because I've previously installed it. In your case, anyway, there's a button there. Just click download or install or whatever it says to make sure that you get that. Cool. So we're going to use that, but not just yet. We're going to wait for this to finish first. So here it's now finished most of the installation. It's asking me to specify a Unix username. I'm just going to type my actual name, Blair. It doesn't have to match your Windows one, but I mean, it can if you want it to. Yeah, so for the passwords, you could see that I've typed in passwords and I've hit enter. You don't get the little dots that you usually would expect, but I promise you it's being typed. In any case, if you're concerned, it does ask you to retype the password just to make sure it's the correct one. And so this is now, the username and password you now entered are your username and password for the Ubuntu installation inside WSL. So now you are here. What you should do at this stage is close this, and in future we're going to use the Windows Terminal instead, which is here. You can also just search for terminal, and I'd actually recommend that you pin that to the start menu. No, sorry, pin that to the taskbar. You can also pin that to the start menu. I actually don't like having stuff there, but yeah, it's good to have stuff here, as long as you can easily get to it. So this is going to start by default in PowerShell, which is not ideal. Instead, we're going to go to the settings and change that to use something else. Now you can see that it's got this so-called default profile. We want that to be the one, not for Windows PowerShell, but for Ubuntu. So down here, it's got one for Ubuntu 18.04. Yours is probably the same, but it's okay if it's different. Just pick up the GUID for Ubuntu 18.04 and pop that in here as the new default profile. So now if you save this, Control S, or do that, and then close this, and close this, open Windows Terminal again, you'll see it is now by default opening in Ubuntu, which is fantastic. So there you go. So once you're here, what you want to do is go back to the instructions, and you want to install Visual Studio Code. All you have to do is here type code. And once that's done, it'll open it up here. So this isn't actually installed inside Windows, but inside WSL. So that's good that we've got that set up. We can actually just close that now. Go back here. So you're going to want to get this Cascadia font. This is a font that will allow you to use some of the plugins that we use later down, so that the shapes of the graphics that you see are correct. So you're going to want to go to this page here. We'll close this one for now. And download the Cascadia code, whatever the most recent one is. That should take you to, well, let's just put it on the desktop. Nice and reliable place to pick up. So it's on the desktop folder. We're just gonna, if you have 7-zip, you could just extract it. Otherwise, you can do it using the Windows one, but I prefer to use the 7-zip one. It's probably better. If you don't have 7-zip, you can also download that as a program for Windows. We'll go inside the OTF folder, and you just want to do a Control-A to select it all, and then right-click it and install. Now, in my case, I've already installed it before, but I'll just replace what I've got before, and it'll just install all the fonts. Alright, so once that's done, you want to close this and you want to go back here. You need to set this as the font for Ubuntu, which is just this one line here about font face. So the way you do that is you go to Windows Terminal, the same thing we were doing before, go to the settings, find the Ubuntu section, and we just need to basically copy this whole thing, Control-C, Control-V, and so we've now got that twice. Now instead of name, it should say font face, so I will grab that and I'll put that here. And instead of whatever that was, I want Cascadia code PL, so Control-C or copy here and put that over here. Do make sure that you save as well. So close this, and we're gonna close this as well. Now we're going to open it again. It's not going to look substantially different. It's actually the same font that's here already, but it will make a difference later on. So we're going to go here and get ZSH. That is, of course, the shell we're going to use. So you grab that, and that will install it inside Ubuntu for you. Make sure that you type your password. When you get to this step, just type the letter Y for yes, and then hit enter. And that is done. Okay, so once we've done that, we want to change the default shell to that. Just copy this and go here, Control-V or right-click and paste and type in your password. And if we close this and open it again here, it will have some stuff. For this one, just hit the number 2 and just let it do its thing. And you can see we're now at a fresh, different kind of shell. Just to be sure, you can close it again and you can see that looks similar but different to what we had before. Now the next step is to get oh-my-zsh. That is a good plugin for us to have. So open that up, click install here. It really just goes to the bottom of the page, and then grab this whole thing, except don't get the $sign. If you copy this here and then go here and paste it here, it will install oh-my-zsh. So once again, we find ourselves at a slightly different shell that just has my username. Right, so we're now up to the step where we want to get this. So just grab this, copy this, and go back here and paste this. So that's either the right click on your mouse or just Control-V. So once you're here, go to the next step, which is to use Visual Studio Code to configure ZSHRC, which is the configuration file for ZSH. Here you want to change Robbie Russell to this thing, power level 10K. And you want to change the plugins to have Git and virtual environments, which is the virtual environments for Python, which is going to be handy when we're working with Python. And that's it here. You can close this and you can reopen Windows Terminal and you'll get some instructions that you'll need to follow. So firstly, does this look like a diamond? It does indeed, so hit Y for yes. Does this look like a lock? I don't think so, so hit N for no. That also doesn't look like a lock, so no. For this one, please use number 2, which is the classic one. Please use number 1, which is going to have Unicode support for these arrowheads. That's what we installed the font for earlier. You want number 2 for light. You want 24-hour time, unless you really don't, in which case use number 3, but you should have the time there. You want to use the angled one, unless you really don't, but I'm going to say let's use the angled one. I want a sharp head. You don't have to, but I think it's good to have the sharp one. Ditto, let's use the number 1 again. For this one, I would suggest having 2 lines. It'll help you keep it nice and clean. And I would suggest disconnect it, otherwise you'll have all sorts of crazy things going on across your screen. For this one, I would suggest no frame, because that frame is going to take up space. I would suggest sparse, so that it's nice and readable. And I would suggest concise, to keep it nice and concise. I would say don't use transient prompt. Use the second one, which is N for no. And for this one, because it's kind of complicated, probably just go with the one they recommend, which is number 3. For this, you want to hit Y for yes, and that is done. So you could just close this and open it again, and you can see we've now got that plugin installed. This is nice and handy. So for example, if you go into a new folder, you do some stuff there, you can see that it changes the top. The stuff on the right, that changes if we go inside a Python virtual environment, which we will work with later. Now at this stage, you do also just want to get this, copy this here, and paste it here. That will enable Ubuntu to save your GitHub credentials later. Quick disclaimer, this is being stored in plain text on your computer, so if you are concerned, you should turn on full disk encryption for Windows, which then also covers the files in WSL and thus helps you protect this plain text file stored on your computer. We now want to go to the Python environment setup. What you want to do is go to the Windows section down here, and you want to open this. This is the Microsoft instructions for how to set up Python on Windows using this setup we're using with WSL. You've actually already done the WSL and the Visual Studio Code stuff. You want to create a new project. So to do that, go to your desktop and make a new directory called Hello World. I've already got it because I already tried that step earlier, so yours will be more successful than this, in which case you can just go into Hello World. And you can see that there's nothing inside, and if you do pwd for present working directory, you get the same thing at the top, which is the Hello World folder. You then want to just make sure that you've got Python 3 installed. Let's have a look at that. Copy that here and paste that there. That is Python 3, very good. If you ever need to upgrade, you can do this. So let's have a look at that. Type in your password. It's going to fetch the latest information about the state of the packages for Ubuntu and also download any updates if required. Okay, so that's done now. And we want to install this, which is pip, or the Python installer thing. So go here, do that, and that's going to install a whole bunch of other stuff. So we'll just let it do its thing. Alright, so now that that's done as well, we can also install Python virtual environments. Yes. So that's quite a bit faster. Okay. You can see the previous one actually took 2 minutes, 6 seconds, even though I sped it up for you. That only took 10 seconds. So that's one of the good things about having this set up. It has those timers, but there's something even better, which is support for these virtual environments. Okay, so let's go inside the Hello World folder as they ask us to. Well, we're actually there already. And it says to set up a virtual environment called .venv. So I'll just do that and I'll paste that there. So that did actually take 8 seconds, but that's done. So we now actually have a virtual environment, and we can enter that virtual environment or activate that virtual environment using this. So if we do that, you could see we are now in a virtual environment, Hello World Python, which is fantastic. This gives us sort of like a protected sandboxed area for us to do stuff with Python without affecting other Python projects that we might want to do. You can also get out of there at any time using the word deactivate. So like so, we're now back in the normal shell, and we can go back into that special virtual environment shell by activating again. You can see we're now in there. So we are still technically inside ZSH as the shell, but we're within that. We are in this Python virtual environment. It gets a bit confusing, which is why it's so important for us to have installed this plugin so that we can see where we are in terms of these virtual environments. Now we can also open up that whole folder using Visual Studio Code. So that's just code and then the dot, well, space and a dot. So dot represents the folder we're in. So code and then dot is open up Visual Studio Code at this folder, and you'll see once it's opened, we're going to be at that Hello World folder. I'll close the welcome page and let's see. So we've got all that virtual environment stuff. You don't have to really understand the details of that. And it does also recommend that you install the Microsoft Python extension, which is a good idea. So let's get that word Python and then go into View and then Extensions. View, Extensions, and then search for Python. Python, install that. That's good, that's installing. And it does say reload required. So just click that and it just restarts Visual Studio Code exactly where we were before, but with that having been installed. And you can see we now have Python installed, which is great. And now let's run a simple Python program. So we can create a new file called test.py, like so. So to pull up a terminal inside here, you can do Control tilde and then paste that there. And then that gives us this new test.py. Now you'll notice that these things look a bit funny. To fix that, what you just do is go to File, Preferences, Settings, and then go here, search for Font Family. And then whatever this is, just replace the first thing with, you could see I was mucking around with it before, with the name of the font we had earlier, which I believe was here somewhere. Yes, Cascadia Code PL. So just make sure that this starts with in single quotes, single quote, paste single quote. I think that should fix it for us. Yes, that's fixed it for us. So that's now got the correct angled fonts. Fantastic. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the code they want us to use, which is just hello world. Surprise. Okay, so that's good. That's a very simple program, of course. And now to run that, we just do Python test py in the terminal. Yes. No, sorry, that's Python 3. There we go. So they say Python, but you should use Python 3. I don't know why they've got the wrong instruction there. Okay, so that's it. We're done. We've just installed and tested the Shell Starter Kit for Windows using Ubuntu 18.04 inside WSL. Thanks for watching the video today and good luck with your own installations. Bye now.